Guns up blazing, dodging bullets cause they aiming, hiding in the shadows, lurking, battlefields on fire.
Hey everyone, so it's Sojourney coming to you with another video. So I haven't made a video in a couple of weeks. A lot of my videos get flagged. One of my videos that I put up, they took it down, but I see other people's videos are still there, so I'm really confused about that. But if this is your first time tuning into my channel, my name is Sojourney for Truth. I am searching for the truth in all things because we have been lied to about a lot of things. And also, we need to know what's going on in our world today. So if you like my work, you can subscribe to my channel, also share this information. And this information today that I'm going to be talking about is going to be about the World Economic Forum of 2022, which starts tomorrow. And I'm going to go into a couple of their agendas, and I will leave the link to the forum, and you can go right to their website. They have everything right there for you. And so I'm going to go into that, and then I'm going to go into a couple of things that stood out to me about their agenda that they're going to be talking about. The forum is going to be till the 20, I believe it's the 26th. So it's going to end on the 26th. So it's the 22nd through the 26th. It's a 4-day forum in Switzerland where all of the global leaders come together to talk about all of the things that they're wanting to talk about with, trying to start the one world government. And like I said, I'm going to tread lightly on what I say because I do not want my work to be going in vain, because they pull my work and it takes a lot to edit these videos and to create these videos for y'all. So I pray that you will get something from this teaching, from this, that you would get some revelation, and that my flesh decreases in me and that the Holy Spirit increases in me through the power of the Holy Spirit that has been given to me by our Father in heaven, God of Israel, Yah. And so here we go. So this scripture was a couple of scriptures that stood out to me about why I decided to keep up with the World Economic Forum and their things that they're doing. So 2 Corinthians chapter 11 verse 3 says, "But I fear lest by any means, as the serpent beguiled Eve through his subtly, which I think is more like subtly, so your mind should be corrupted from the simplicity that is in Christ." So scripture is saying that the serpent, he comes in so subtly. He comes in, so cunningly that we do not know he is coming in the ways he's coming in. So translated in the Good News Bible says, in order to keep Satan from getting the upper hand of us, for we know what his plans are. We need to know what the plans of the enemy is. So this is the translation of that in King James. Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, for we are not ignorant of his devices. So we need to know what the enemy is doing. We need to be as sheep in the midst of wolves. This is scripture, Matthew 10:16 says, "Be ye therefore wise as serpents and harmless as doves." So we will be harmless as doves, but at the same time, we will be wise as serpents. And that's what we need to be. We need to be wise as serpents in this hour that we are in. So I'm just going to go right into the new, share my screen so that I can show y'all. Let's go right into it. So Davos 2022, who's coming and everything else you need to know. So this is the World Economic Forum, weforum.org. You can sign in if you want to. I did join it or whatever through, my email. Like I got many different emails. And I didn't sign in right now or whatever, but it has all of the things, their agenda for 2022. Now, this has been the first time since the pandemic, since they have met. They say they usually meet during the winter season, but they're meeting in the spring this time. So it's been 2 years since they have met. And you can go and look on YouTube and see their discussions back in 2022 of their plans for the global, sustainable of the world. So it said leaders from around the globe to meet in Davos, Switzerland for the Economic Forum Annual Meeting 2022. The meeting is centered around the theme history at a turning point, government policies and business strategies. So at this moment, y'all, we are in a big pivotal turning point. What tipped us into a turning point? The pandemic tipped us into the turning point because it pushed them closer to their agenda. Like I said, I'm going to tread lightly on what I say because freedom of speech is pretty much non-existent. So I'm treading lightly on what I say. Nearly 2,500 leaders from politics, business, civil society, and media to participate in the unique Spring 2022 annual meeting. So it just says some other little stuff. And, you can play this if you want to, what to expect. They got it on Spotify, of course. So I'm just going to read a little bit more, and then I'm going to go into the pretty much the agenda. What's this year's meeting about? The meeting is centered around the theme history at a turning point, government policies and business strategies. It happens at the most consequential geopolitical and geoeconomic moment of the past 3 decades and against the backdrop of a once-in-a-century pandemic. The war in Ukraine and the resulting tragedy calls for global moral action. Leaders will address urgent humanitarian and security challenges as they simultaneously advance long-standing economic, environmental, and societal priorities, all while reinforcing the foundations of a stable global system. Doesn't this sound so subtle, so crafty? And that's what the Bible tells us about these people. They're very crafty in their ways, and they come very subtly with their agenda. Clarity of vision and unity of purpose will be crucial for making progress against the unprecedented complexity of a multipolar world. The meeting provides a unique environment in which to reconnect, exchange insights, gain fresh perspectives, and advance solutions. Now, this man right here, when I hear him talk, it just sounds like he just got a load of marbles or spit in his mouth. He just disgusts me. He really does. He really does. The fact that nearly 2,500 leaders come together in person demonstrates the need for a trusted, informal, and action-oriented global platform to confront the issues in a crisis-driven world. Now, how is the world a crisis-driven? Because it is pre-calculated. And again, that's all I'm going to say. What's the conversation and where's the impact? The philosophy of collective actions has endured for more than 50 years, and it has never been more needed than now. The meeting is the starting point for a new era of global responsibility and cooperation. The moment demands it. Sessions address global cooperation, economic rebalancing, society, equity, and global health, nature, food and climate, industry transformation and innovation, governance, and cybersecurity. So this is where I click to get the full program. It says, see the full program here. So I'm going to go down to a little bit of what they're saying. The focus is on setting strategies for impact, building new frontiers, which this is like your smart cities, which I was going to do a whole video on that. But I didn't want the video to be so long. I'll probably do a part 2 on this. Creating viable future scenarios and providing ambitious solutions to the world's biggest issues. So this man, Borge Brindy, he said this annual meeting happens against the most complex geopolitical and geoeconomic situation in decades. We'll have to focus even more on impact and outcomes. So that's what he said. And it says, over the past 2 years, the World Economic Forum has strengthened its impact initiatives, which deal with issues ranging from COVID-19 and climate change to education, as well as technology and energy governance. These include the Reskilling Revolution, an initiative to provide 1 billion people with better education, skills, and jobs by 2030. And if you did not know the 2030 agenda, they said they're going to be ramping it up. It needs to move quickly than 2030. So it needs to be like speedily happening before 2030. And I'll see if I can interject that video in there where they said that. An initiative on universal environmental, social, and governance metrics and disclosures to measure stakeholders, capitalism, and the 1 trillion trees initiative, which I was going to put something about that, which that goes into your biodiversity thing. It was kind of boring though, but I do have a video about that. That's one of their agendas, to protect our trees and forests and restore the planet's ecosystems. And then it has some more things, and how do I keep up with the meeting, and all of this stuff. And of course, we want to check out the Twitter hashtag and all the social media hashtags this week to see all of the different sustainable things that they're going to say that are going to help with our, ever-growing world that's changing every day. And of course, I'm being sarcastic, but again, I do not want my video to be flagged. So here is the forum full program. It is 90 pages. I believe it's 90 pages. So I'm just going to go into a couple of things. It's so much. The Global Agenda, World Economic Forum annual meeting, and this is their pretty much itinerary of what is to come on tomorrow. So we have the 22nd through the 26th. They're registering now, they're eating, they're, getting to know each other more, networking and things like that, probably talking about how to overtake the world more, those type of things. So yes, 89 pages. And so it has where you can book your 30-minute slot. They have some that's going to be like video and stuff like that, which I think because I'm signed in, I might can see that. I'm not really sure, but I'm not going to do all that. But it has Global Collaboration Village. Is embarking on a landmark initiative to strengthen global collaboration using the immersive interactive technology of the metaverse to drive inclusive impact at a scale. And this metaverse, I'm going to do a video separately for that. I'm just going to say that about that. Explore the environmental and capabilities of the Global Collaboration Village in your own digital avatar. Discover opportunities to restore landscapes and livelihoods in one of the world's most remote regions. Slots are available throughout the day on a first-come, first-served basis for a virtual, experience. Stand on the course for nature action. So this is just some other stuff. But what really stuck out to me, and I'm going to go to it, rebuilding social trust. Again, more things, future-proofing health systems, mounting migration, crisis, testing already stressed health systems. How can policies, practices, partnerships be adapted? This is some stuff about health. This is what he was talking about, reskilling the revolution with a labor market influx with the fallout of the pandemic, technological shifts, and the green transition. Up to 1 billion people will need reskilling. Oh, we have to reteach them things when it comes to technology. So again, we're moving to a more technological world. Okay. And so then we have resilient future, despite clear warnings that a global pandemic was a real possibility, few countries were ready when the pandemic hit. What lessons about resilience and preparedness must be learned from the past 2 years? Why do they keep trying to prepare us for this so much? Like, you know, and that's an agenda in itself, that we will see more of these. And I hope that y'all can see it highlighted. We're going to see more of these, according to Mr. Gates. Okay. And again, those are videos for another days, but yeah. Economic weaponry, use and effectiveness of sanctions. Oh, okay. So this is saying in Iran and now Russia, extensive economic sanctions are being used as a primary tool for achieving geosecurity objectives. How effective are sanctions as a source of leverage? And what will the short and long-term economic implications, as well as the unintended side effects, be for leaders to consider? And of course, we have some people that's going to be there, United Kingdom's person, and then somebody from the USA, 2 people from USA, they're going to be moderating the workshop. We have some more things. It's so much, y'all, but I'm just wanting to go down to number 20 so then I can go into the little video. So I have a video on some of this stuff. Let me go down to 20. This is just some more stuff. Global cybersecurity outlook, safer digital future. I will be going more into this about the digital future. I have some videos about that, the digital future. And we are, let me see. I think it was, okay, the new era of digital money. This is what I wanted to, this is going to be really interesting to hear what they got to say on the 23rd about this whole thing. So it says remittances have long been a critical source of income in developing countries. They have steadily increased over the years, a product of migration patterns and advances in cash transfer technologies. How can the public and private sectors collaborate to lower the cost of remittances and create policies for inclusive social economic development? And it's going to be live streamed. And so the future of democracy, global economic outlook, and then I'm just going to go in biodiversity cities. This is where they're talking about the trees and different things like that. I'm going to go into another video about that. Maybe this will be a part 2 about the biodiversity cities, and then also with the smart cities, and how all that ties together with their vision of the biodiversity cities by 2030, which are kind of like your smart cities. So I'm going to go into a new share. Oh, wait a minute. Nope. Same one. Hold on. I'm going to go here. Sorry. Okay, so let's go right here. So these are some videos that's going to give you a pretty much small breakdown of the agenda that I just read. And this is coming from like a business.
Watch the NBA Finals with YouTube TV. Try it free.
Okay.
the World Economic Forum annual meeting, where the brightest minds, most powerful political figures, and global industry leaders all make the climb to Davos, Switzerland, a town nestled in the Swiss Alps, best known for its long ski trails and beautiful scenery. At an altitude of 5,118 feet, Davos is one of the highest towns in Europe, and for 1 week, it will also be one of the busiest. More than 2,000 attendees are expected to make the trip and take part in the forum's stacked agenda that includes discussions on climate change, economics, geopolitical frictions, and much more.
The cost of this fight, it's not cheap, but caving to aggression is going to be more costly if we allow it to happen.
It's the first in-person summit since before the COVID-19 pandemic, and it is an unusual one, set against a backdrop of war in Europe and economic uncertainty worldwide. The World Economic Forum says Davos will be the starting point for a new era of global responsibility and cooperation.
There is a lot of lack of trust globally. We are faced with a very polarized world. We also need countries to collaborate.
The World Economic Forum's annual meeting is normally held in the dead of winter, but this year, spring will be in full bloom, perhaps a hopeful nod to humanity's future.
Okay, so we hear that one. And then it's another one. So we hear that, and then here's another one that pretty much, again, gives you a breakdown.
The World Economic Forum annual meeting that kickstarts on May 22nd this year will see the brightest minds, the most powerful political figures, and global industry leaders, all making a climb to Davos, Switzerland, a town nestled in the Swiss Alps, best known for its long ski trails and beautiful scenery. At an altitude of 5,118 feet, Davos is one of the highest towns in Europe. And for the upcoming 1 week, it will also be one of the busiest. After a 2-year hiatus, the meeting will bring together nearly 2,500 leaders from around the globe who will gather to discuss on a wide range of concerns like climate change, economics, geopolitical frictions, and much more, with the hope of improving the state of the world.
The World Economic Forum's annual meeting is normally held in the dead of the winters, but this year it will be held when spring will be in full bloom, perhaps a hopeful nod to humanity's future. The theme of this year's May 22nd to May 26th summit is History at a Turning Point.
The issues to be discussed include government policies and business strategies against a backdrop of the global pandemic and the war in Ukraine and geo-economic challenges. The 5-day meet will focus on 6 thematic pillars. These include fostering global and regional cooperation, securing the economic recovery, and shaping a new era of growth, strengthening health resilience beyond the pandemic for future threats, safeguarding climate, food, and nature, driving industry transformation, and harnessing the power of fourth industrial revolution. Indian participants at the event would include Prime Minister Narendra Modi, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman, along with several other government leaders and over 100 CEOs.
The meeting convenes at a strategic point where public figures and global leaders will meet in person to reconnect, exchange insights, gain fresh perspectives, and advance solutions to emerging new challenges for the future.
Tune into Business Today as our top editors Rahul Kamal and Siddharth Zarabi get you exclusive coverage of the World Economic Forum from Davos and insightful conversations with top global leaders from the world of business and politics to find out what the future holds for the world amid the rising new challenges.
To remain up.
And so you heard that. And then we have some other stuff, but I want to go into, I was going to do like a big spiel about the digital currencies, but I think I'm going to go into this one where this guy was talking about the digital currencies.
You see this
and
app right
everything.
here? It's called Audible. Using just this little app on my phone, I was able.
And it was pretty interesting what he
So
was saying.
the UK is currently the head of the G7 group. That's the world's most economically advanced countries. And the UK currently chairs the G7 group. Our chancellor, who does our economy, called Chancellor of the Exchequer, his name's Rishi Sunak. He put out this video saying that what they want to do is bring in this thing called the central banking digital currency. They want to replace fiat paper money with digital money as a competitor to Bitcoin and crypto money, right? But instead of being decentralized currency, it will be controlled by a government. It's digital currency, but controlled centrally through the banks, Bank of England. So instead of having a bank account with whatever, HSBC or Bank of America, you'll have a bank account directly with, in the American context, with the Fed. In the UK, directly with the Bank of England. You have a personal bank account and you're given digital money in that bank account. These are called central banking digital currencies. The Chancellor of the Exchequer in the UK has already announced their intention to do this as the G7 group. And these, if you look up...
this sounds terrifying.
If you look up the Telegraph newspaper...
Central bank digital currency, is that the one down below?
Digital currency should be programmable. See that one there? Yeah? Now, what they're doing is they're saying, you know, everyone knows that with inflation at over 5%, it's now 5.4%, right? Our fiat money, the paper money, is increasingly becoming worthless, and we're headed towards a big disaster. The Fed wants to raise interest rates. We're in so much debt that if you raise interest rates, people are going to suffer because we're living on debt as Western economies. So they realize that this kind of the lifespan of paper money is fast coming to an end because of the 2008 economic crash in particular. So they're bringing in these central banking digital currencies. Why is that word programmable in there? So what they said in that article, and the Chancellor put a video out saying this as well, they've said that this money that you will earn from work, instead of having paper money, you have this digital money. It's programmable so that you can't buy certain foods, or if you do something that your employer doesn't like, it's all in that article. You won't be able to spend your money. In other words, it's not money. They're vouchers. They're like food vouchers. And they can be programmed so that, like the Chinese social credit system, that if you try and use them on a certain thing, it won't work. Say you want to buy a burger and they want $5, which is one of the examples used. You start to try and buy unhealthy meat. It just won't work. You tap your card, you can't buy the thing because you've met your quota that month of burgers. You have to buy something like a vegan meal.
So it won't just be money in the sense of the way we have dollars or pounds today.
Yeah.
It'll be something that's controlled in terms of your ability to distribute it.
Which is why I'm calling it a voucher. It's a coupon.
But even a coupon, if you have a coupon to buy bread, you could still buy the bread. Like
But you can't buy, see that coupon to buy bread, what you can't do is buy a burger with that coupon. It's for bread.
Right.
Yeah?
Right. Do you feel like you're sounding the alarm
Yes.
for people that don't understand what is going on?
So here, I'll put it up for you here, yeah? So there's the video.
The group of the world's 7 most advanced economies, the G7, is launching a set of public policy principles for retail central bank digital currencies, CBDCs. Central bank digital currencies could be a digital version of money, a bit like a digital banknote.
Right, so that's the guy who runs our economy in the UK. His name's the Chancellor of the Exchequer. And here is the article. Bank of England tells ministers to intervene on digital currency programming. Yeah? And here's a quote from the article. Digital cash could be programmed to ensure it is only spent on essentials or goods which an employer or government deems to be sensible.
Holy
shit. I'm going to take it one step further for you, John, right? So the checkpoint Charlie exists everywhere. They bring in digital banking, central banking digital currencies. You've got a scenario now that you're checking in and out everywhere you go using vouchers that are programmed and you can only spend where you're told you can spend them. There's another word for that, man. That's called the Chinese social credit system. So what they are telling us, and when I say they, who's they? People in power. That's the head of our economy, the Chancellor of the Exchequer, second most powerful person other than the Prime Minister and maybe the Foreign Secretary in the UK, right? He's telling us, I just played it there for you. He's telling us that's what he, as the UK, the head of the G7, want to bring in for the G7. And if I'm speaking to you the way I'm speaking now, and my employer or government, you heard that in the quote directly, yeah? deems me as saying or doing something inappropriate, suddenly I can't actually pay to come here and speak to you anymore. My digital currency won't even pay for the ticket because it will be known that I'm coming to speak to you. Sorry, your vouchers don't allow you to purchase that ticket to go and speak to Joe.
And this is where we get into the kind of censorship that we see in social media that is not, you can't have that kind of censorship with the First Amendment in normal discourse. But you can have that kind of censorship if you've developed a digital platform that distributes information, but it's a private company. So think about what money is, where you can spend it on whatever you want, versus this digital currency, which is essentially controlled in a sense, like you have free speech on Twitter, but you really don't. Because if you go too far or you talk about something that they don't find appropriate, they'll just ban your account. That could be what we're looking at in terms of what we think of as free speech being social media platforms could be what we think of as your free range ability to buy whatever you want with whatever money that you've earned.
So what's going on here, right? What's going on here is with this central banking digital currency, if you get to that situation where you end up with the Chinese social credit system in the West, why? Why would anyone want to do that, right? I believe we're in a moment of the Gutenberg press. Go back to when the printing press was invented. Technology disrupts power structures. It always has. Printing and its invention was a new technology. What happened when they invented the printing press? The power structures who up until that point were reading the Bible for you and were telling you that you're going to pay this priest X amount of favors and he'll forgive you your sins. And that became a bribery system, right? Which is what Martin Luther was so upset about when he pinned his thesis to the wall. The printing press disrupted that power dynamic because people could read the Bible for themselves. And they began realizing that the power structures were manipulating what was written to control people. Now, nobody in hindsight is going to argue that printing and its invention is a bad thing for humanity. But at the time, it led to war. It led to the 30 Years' War in Europe because it disrupted power so much that people began rising up, and it led to this 30-year period of war, which eventually led to the Reformation, and the rest is history, right? What's today's Gutenberg press? The internet. The decentralization of information, and then because of that, the decentralization of currency in the form of crypto is disrupting power. Because the way that after the revolution of the Reformation, the printing press, control was still possible, though obviously not to that level, which is why we no longer have those absolute monarchies. But control in a nation-state context was still possible to an extent because the money supply was controlled. Now, what's happening is that the invention of the internet, with the decentralization of information, and in particular here, the decentralization of currency in the form of cryptocurrencies, is disrupting those power hierarchies. And it's leading to this conflict now. And we're in a moment when the printing press was invented, the powers that be needed to try and hold on to that power as the 30 Years' War kicked off. They eventually lost it. But to hold on to it, they became very brutal because they were losing their grip on power. Today, to have the infrastructure in place that you can have a checkpoint Charlie society, so that when the central banking digital currencies are in place, that infrastructure is already there because people were so scared they voluntarily allowed you to put that in place, so that you can maintain your grip on power, because what's coming around the corner is the decentralization of everything, of media, therefore of narrative. And of course, remember, whoever defines the truth gets to define reality. Decentralization of the economy through crypto. You no longer have the power to define the story and control the money supply. So the powers that be, who are losing that power, need to clamp down. They're clamping down on their own children because we are people who are born of the West. So it's an internal civil war in a hybrid war context over truth and over information. Centralization versus decentralization. It's no longer about left or right. It's about up versus down. It's about power versus those who don't have power.
Do you think if there was no cryptocurrency, if there was no Bitcoin or any of the other crypto coins, that they would attempt to do some sort of digital currency? Do you think that this is a response to the understanding that that decentralized digital currency is eventually going to take over, or has gained far more momentum than they ever anticipated?
I think so. And also decentralized media, because you can't control the narrative.
Right.
Now, we will get out of this because ultimately it's a numbers game. And ultimately, in times like this, you end up fighting against your own sons, right? It's those in power fighting their own people. And eventually, the people are, by sheer numbers, end up becoming the people in power, right? So in the long run, we may well end up in a decentralized world, which will be much better. But as I say, that to get there, we have to get through this period of those in power attempting to hold on to that power.
The case for central bank digital currencies as well, and also China's digital currency changes every bank. It's so much, y'all, but I'm trying to get y'all to see what a digital currency is and what these things are. Let's go to this one.
No, you can't use CBDC and send money abroad. Let me say again.
We all come into this world with potential, and the more of it we can tap in.
Yeah, you know, our borders, once you step beyond the borders of a country, you run into regulations, laws that have to do with money laundering and counter-terrorism financing. So you have to be mindful of who is sending the money and who's the money coming from. So the banks, if I'm sending money to you in New York, your bank in New York is interested in who am I, and my bank in Jamaica is interested in who are you, to make sure that we're clean and that we're not part of any terrorist network or any money laundering network. And that's where the banks play a big role. And they use their system, which is called SWIFT, to move money from me to you. Well, that SWIFT system, as its name suggests, is quite swift, but it does have bank charges that are attached to it. And I think that's what people want to get away from, a lot of those charges that are involved with moving from bank to bank.
Also, the reason that perhaps some of these people are using crypto assets is the idea of democratization of finance, right? Alexander, what are the risks associated to that? And perhaps how does CBDCs compare in the way, as Richard just mentioned, about more safety, transparency as well?
Yeah, just to go back to the cross-border issue, I think in this survey, central banks are increasingly thinking about CBDC as facilitating cross-border. All the problems that Governor Davos just mentioned are there, but they talk about two specific ones: operating hours and long chains of correspondent banking that you can reduce using interoperable CBDC. But CBDC is a stable digital currency, right? It will be stable in the sense that it's issued by the central bank. There is a central bank which will implement monetary policy to make things stable, different from the other means of payment, supposedly, like the stable coins.
Right.
So in this sense, yes, it can have the features of the digital, the crypto, or the stable coins, programmability, composability, which are the new features of digital money, but with a liability of the central bank. So you have a centralized, trusted party, if I may say, that will be issuing this digital asset and not, as we see, stable coins today.
And then Richard was talking about all of the benefits and positives of being more transparent and being able to track all of these payments through CBDCs and central banks backing. But I wonder, what are both of your thoughts when it comes to ideas where authorities can actually have too much information and privacy is an issue? Last year, for example, the PBOC was talking about anonymous wallets, and all of a sudden when it became about larger payments, they wanted a valid ID. But how do you ensure that that transparency is actually used for good?
Well, in Jamaica, with central bank digital currency, we at the central bank won't know who is doing what transaction. The commercial bank, if they are requested to, and we can talk about that in a minute, they can trace where every transaction came from and where it went. Now, to do that, in our case, for example, you'd need a court order. So somebody would have to get authorization from the courts to say, let me go and look for the transaction that John Brown did on the 14th of September 2021. And that can be traced. And that's one of the big advantages of digital currencies. But normally it would be quite anonymous because we're trying to make cash as much as possible free to use and anonymous. And only in exceptional circumstances would we break that anonymity.
Yeah, there is the hybrid system, which is the central bank just report the wholesale, the net value of the payment service providers, banks and non-banks. So, and then the personal information, the transaction at the personal level is at the banks and at other payment service providers. So as the governor said, I mean, only in democracies where the rule of law is there, and then we have checks and balances, institutional checks and balances, you can only go to who is behind the pseudonymous with a court order, right, like bank deposits today in most of democracies that we know. So there's no difference in this respect.
And I would like to remind our audience to submit any questions you might have through the Bloomberg New Economy app. I really wonder also, what about the costs of not only CBDCs, but crypto assets as well, and this ensuing chaos that we're seeing for commercial banks as well? Because I know that Jamaica, for example, you tended to go through intermediary banks where you would not necessarily distribute JAMDEX, but actually use commercial banks. Right. What led you to that decision?
Well, I think there are different systems for central bank digital currency. Either we would go straight to the consumer and give them an account at the central bank, or we go through the commercial banks. Commercial banks have hundreds of thousands of customers already. So why would a central bank want to recreate that distribution network? All the merchants are customers of the commercial banks too. And we want to encourage private enterprise anyway. So we chose to go through the commercial banks. Now, because central bank digital currency is free to use and the banks can't attach a fee to it, there's a little bit of reluctance to embrace it and to take it to market. And so we have to be very encouraging to them to take it to the consumer and to take it to the merchants. But I think that what they're looking to do is to wrap that CBDC in a wallet where they can offer many other financial services, and on that basis, distribute it to their customers. So I'm looking forward to the near future when those wallets will become public and will become interoperable and begin to gain momentum.
If I may ask a follow-up on how the rollout of JAMDEX is going right now. I know that is a pilot program, but we've seen other economies, especially in LATAM, like Ecuador, who released a dinero electrónico years back. They stopped because it wasn't really being that popular among the public. What are you seeing?
Right, so we're still in the pilot stage, and I therefore can't comment as to how popular it would be. But I mean, once we have the banks in support of it, I think it's not a hard thing for the consumer to be won over, because they're all using phones already. In fact, the number of phones in Jamaica outnumber the number of people. So everybody is au fait with how to use the phone, and to move currency around with a phone would be second nature to them.
Alexander, just going back to the idea of disintermediation of commercial banks and perhaps some of the risks posed by all of these crypto assets and CBDCs just competing with the traditional financial system. What are your thoughts?
Well, depending on how you design the CBDC, of course, central banks are fully aware of these potential consequences. So if the CBDC will pay interest, then it will compete directly with bank deposits. So the transmission mechanism of monetary policy will be faster as far as deposit rates are concerned. Okay, but what we see is that central banks in general are looking CBDC as a complement for cash. So it should be a footprint which resembles the footprint of cash, which on average is around 10% of the means of payment. So yeah, I mean, I think the community is fully aware.
Klaus Schwab and his high-powered World Economic Forum, also known as WEF, have made some bold claims in their quest to fulfill its mission as an international organization that will change the state of the world. The World Economic Forum is notable for its Great Reset agenda, in which Klaus boldly claims, "You will own nothing and be happy." This statement, which many interpreted as an anti-capitalist approach to economics, has sparked outrage and put a very controversial spotlight on the World Economic Forum's intentions. The views and agenda set forth by the WEF are the polar opposite of what Bitcoin represents, which is the pursuit of financial freedom from any governing body. Despite their differences, the World Economic Forum tweeted out their opinion on how Bitcoin can benefit the world when it comes to energy consumption. The WEF tweeted out, change in the way Bitcoin is coded could almost eliminate its environmental impact. A video accompanied the tweet and stated, miners could stake their own Bitcoins to verify transactions. The change in code would mean Bitcoin would change from proof of work to proof of stake. The energy debate has been a long-standing issue with Bitcoin miners. Some have stated the energy argument is just another FUD thrown at the flagship crypto, while others, such as Ripple Labs co-founder Chris Larsen, who started Greenpeace, a campaign to get Bitcoin's code changed so it'll be friendlier to the environment. The web portal cleanupbitcoin.com states, you've heard Bitcoin fuels the climate crisis, but did you know a software code change could clean it up? The since-deleted tweet from the World Economic Forum received backlash immediately. Supporters of Bitcoin stated that the World Economic Forum's talking points had faults in the assumptions underpinning the group's entire theory. Co-founder and CEO of Blockstream, Adam Back, replied to the tweet by saying, the authors of this are really confused about basic fundamentals. An individual responded to the tweet. Adam, I don't think they're confused. I think they know exactly what the F they're doing. It's a calculated, well-orchestrated attack on Bitcoin. Adam Back then replied, they should be ashamed to say such nonsense, so they at least can have a discussion while being coherent. Michael Saylor took the liberty to express his opinion about the topic as well. Saylor stated, if you remove the energy from anything useful, you can almost eliminate its environmental impact. He then continued, this is most common in fantasy novels and computer games. Real planes, trains, automobiles, homes, food, medicine, machines, and money all benefit from energy. So do real people. Plan B chimed in, tweeting that the WEF's tweet is right on brand with the WEF's mission of misinformation. Plan B said, at least this WEF attack, or misinformation on Bitcoin, is consistent with the WEF mission. Accompanying Plan B's text was a photo of the controversial WEF tweet about the Great Reset, which says, you'll own nothing and you'll be happy. This is how our world could change by 2030. What are your thoughts on the WEF's tweets and then deleting it? Leave a comment. If you found...
Now, I found that to be really interesting because it's something about codes and all that stuff. So I know when I listened to it, I was like, well, what are they talking about? Codes and cleaning up the environment and all that. So I have an actual video explaining what blockchain is and how the whole digital currency and everything is. So it's a 6-minute video, and I want to share that with y'all as well. And then I have 2 more videos, and I think I'm going to be done.
What's it like to learn math on Brilliant.org? Brilliant gets you hands-on to help you learn by doing. Learn topics.
Blockchains are incredibly popular nowadays. But what is a blockchain? What problems do they solve, and how can they be used? Like the name indicates, a blockchain is a chain of blocks that contains information. This technique was originally described in 1991 by a group of researchers and was originally intended to timestamp digital documents so that it's not possible to backdate them or to tamper with them, almost like a notary. However, it went by mostly unused until it was adapted by Satoshi Nakamoto in 2009 to create the digital cryptocurrency Bitcoin. Now, a blockchain is a distributed ledger that is completely open to anyone. They have an interesting property. Once some data has been recorded inside a blockchain, it becomes very difficult to change it. So how does that work? Well, let's take a closer look at a block. Each block contains some data, the hash of the block, and the hash of the previous block. The data that is stored inside a block depends on the type of blockchain. The Bitcoin blockchain, for example, stores the details about a transaction in here, such as the sender, receiver, and the amount of coins. A block also has a hash. You can compare a hash to a fingerprint. It identifies a block and all of its contents, and it's always unique, just as a fingerprint. Once a block is created, its hash is being calculated. Changing something inside the block will cause the hash to change. So in other words, hashes are very useful when you want to detect changes to blocks. If the fingerprint of a block changes, it no longer is the same block. The third element inside each block is the hash of the previous block. And this effectively creates a chain of blocks, and it's this technique that makes the blockchain so secure. Let's take an example. Here we have a chain of 3 blocks. As you can see, each block has a hash and the hash of the previous block. So block number 3 points to block number 2, and number 2 points to number 1. Now the first block is a bit special. It cannot point to previous blocks because, well, it's the first one. We call this block the Genesis block. Now, let's say that you tamper with the second block. This causes the hash of the block to change as well. In turn, that will make block 3 and all following blocks invalid because they no longer store a valid hash of the previous block. So changing a single block will make all following blocks invalid. But using hashes is not enough to prevent tampering. Computers these days are very fast and can calculate hundreds of thousands of hashes per second. You could effectively tamper with a block and recalculate all the hashes of other blocks to make your blockchain valid again. So to mitigate this, blockchains have something that is called proof of work. It's a mechanism that slows down the creation of new blocks. In Bitcoin's case, it takes about 10 minutes to calculate the required proof of work and add a new block to the chain. This mechanism makes it very hard to tamper with the blocks because if you tamper with one block, you'll need to recalculate the proof of work for all the following blocks. So the security of a blockchain comes from its creative use of hashing and the proof of work mechanism. But there is one more way that blockchains secure themselves, and that is by being distributed. Instead of using a central entity to manage the chain, blockchains use a peer-to-peer network and everyone is allowed to join. When someone joins this network, he gets a full copy of the blockchain. The node can use this to verify that everything is still in order. Now, let's see what happens when someone creates a new block. That block is sent to everyone on the network. Each node then verifies the block to make sure that it hasn't been tampered with. And if everything checks out, each node adds this block to their own blockchain. All the nodes in this network create consensus. They agree about what blocks are valid and which aren't. Blocks that are tampered with will be rejected by other nodes in the network. So to successfully tamper with a blockchain, you'll need to tamper with all the blocks on the chain, redo the proof of work for each block, and take control of more than 50% of the peer-to-peer network. Only then will your tampered block become accepted by everyone else. So this is almost impossible to do. Blockchains are also constantly evolving. One of the most recent developments is the creation of smart contracts. These contracts are simple programs that are stored on the blockchain and can be used to automatically exchange coins based on certain conditions. More on smart contracts in a later video. The creation of blockchain technology piqued a lot of people's interest. Soon others realized that this technology could be used for other things, like storing medical records, creating a digital notary, or even collecting taxes. So now you know what a blockchain is, how it works on a basic level, and what problems it solves. Want to learn how you can implement it?
Well, that's blockchain in a nutshell, which to me is very scary. And I've seen the code for the blockchain. And yeah, going back to scripture really fast. Scripture tells us, Revelations chapter 13, verse 16, and he calls it all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in their right hand and in their foreheads. So we're moving towards this. That is what blockchain is. We're moving quickly towards digital currency, Some people think it's a good thing. Some people are oblivious to the devices of the workers of iniquity, and you know, we have to know what's going on. So I wanted to go to one more thing before I go here. I have one more video. I just found this video. I thought this was pretty interesting.
The United Nations Sustainable Development Goals are 17 targets we must meet by 2030 to ensure decent lives for all on a healthy planet. Right now, it's expected we will fail. One reason for that is the growth in our global population. The more people there are, the more we take from nature. More land for housing, infrastructure, and producing food. More water, more trees. More of us means more pollution and the climate emissions that threaten us all. Our numbers are driving a sixth mass extinction, with 1 million species at risk of disappearing for good. Everyone deserves a long, healthy life, but when governments are poor, health systems buckle under the pressure of growing populations. Meanwhile, women and children are dying because of barriers to family planning, and millions of women and girls still have no say over what happens to their bodies and lives. There is enough of everything for everyone on our planet now, if the richest nations take less and share more. But with our population expected to reach almost 11 billion by the end of the century, abolishing poverty and hunger and providing food, safe water and energy for all without destroying more of the living world will become impossible. Just as all these problems are linked, so are the solutions. When women and communities are empowered and given the best education, they usually choose smaller families. That helps people escape poverty while taking pressure off resources and the environment. Good healthcare and economic security free people from the need to have many children to support them. And access to modern contraception means that they can choose to have fewer. In rich countries where our impact is so excessively high, we can make a critical difference by having smaller families alongside reducing our runaway consumption. Achieving a sustainable global population matters. If we do, we can all have the dignity, security, and well-being envisioned by the Sustainable Development Goals. We must not fail. Let's invest in and celebrate solutions that empower people to choose smaller families, make their lives better, and protect our only home. Today, tomorrow, and forever. Visit populationmatters.org/SDGs.
That tickled me because they're trying to control us, women and men, but the women is the ones that have the children, to have smaller families. But what does the Bible tell us? It said to be fruitful and multiply, especially those that have a husband and a wife. You have your family, you have 14, 15, 20 kids, whatever. But they're telling you no. And I know in China, they have a one girl rule or something. You only can have one girl. In China, they have a restriction on how many kids they can have or how many girls they can have in China. When I saw that video, that kind of was disturbing in my spirit. So again, coming subtly like they are the solution when it's really they're the problem. Because if we get off of the foreign oils and if we use the technology for good with the solar paneling and all of those different things, we will have water, we will have, electricity and all of the things, like all the people that are homesteaders or people that are sustainable living people. It can be done without using stuff to pollute the air. But again, it is all a lie. And so I'm going to go into one more thing and then this is it. And I'm going to be done. So I wanted to go here. So you can hear him talk with his marbles in his mouth.
Gentlemen, it's my great honor to participate for the 8th time at this important meeting, even if only in a virtual way. I would like to express my high respect to His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Rashid Al Maktoum for having taken the initiative for creating such an important global platform for governments shaping the future. I also want to congratulate Dubai for having organized such a successful World Expo despite all the repercussions of the global pandemic. Last November, in partnership with His Excellency Mohammed Al Gargawi, we brought together 60 top intellectual thinkers here in Dubai. Thank you to His Excellency for enabling this initiative to define a long-term narrative to make the world more resilient, more inclusive, and more sustainable. With all the current issues on our agenda, we tend to forget that we are in the midst of the 4th industrial revolution, which accelerates global change in much more comprehensive and faster ways than the previous 3 revolutions. I'm proud that the government of Dubai has been so foresighted in establishing a Center for the 4th Industrial Revolution in cooperation with the World Economic Forum. The objective is to quickly recognize the potential of new technologies, as well as develop the necessary ethical and political frameworks around those new technologies to ensure that those technologies are human-centered and society-oriented. The world has to overcome not only the damage done to our economies and our societies by COVID-19, it also has to confront the repercussions of a dangerous clash between major global powers. History is truly at a turning point. We do not yet know the full extent and the systemic and structural changes which will happen. However, we do know that global energy systems, food systems, and supply chains will be deeply affected. In times of crisis, the role of governments is more important and more relevant than ever. What is also needed is a summit like this one to go beyond crisis management and to look into constructive ways we can build our common future. Our futures are intrinsically connected to one another, as the profound challenges to mankind, such as climate change, are globally interconnected and require collaborative responses. In conclusion, and despite all the challenges, we have to uphold our responsibility, which we have towards the next generation, and which we can only fulfill through collaboration on a national and on a global level. I wish you an impactful and successful meeting.
And so that was your Klaus Schwab. Yeah. And if you don't know who he is, you might want to get really familiar with him, because he is one of the people that's pushing for the agenda. So I wanted to go into a couple of more things that I've seen for the program, Post-Pandemic City. You can go and read this for yourself. This is only page 25. It's so much, y'all. And this is what they're going to be talking about, you know, why they're there. Where will the jobs of tomorrow come from? Of course, the Billion Lives Challenge. And, you know, how are we going to sustain with so many people in the world? The fabric of change. I mean, it just goes on and on and on and on and on. Stuff about India, stuff about Latin America. I mean, it just goes on and on, y'all. Stuff about Afghanistan, safeguarding our planet, energy. Oh, of course, the inclusiveness of LGBTQY, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, blasphemy and abomination. You know, they got to have that in there as well. And yes, it is abomination, and I don't care who don't like it. About the nuclear option, on and on. Like I said, it's just a lot. The carbon footprint, leaving the carbon footprint, sustainable governance. And if you did not know that, starting on June the 1st in California, they're going to be restricting your water. So you're going to be limited to how much water you can use. I don't know how much the restriction is going to be, but they're starting that in California because they're running out of water there in California. And if you did not know, they said they're running out of electricity. Is going to be like power shortages and shortage of water and all this stuff, which is in this form right here that they're going to be talking about. And I'm just like, interesting. The stakeholder paradigm in Latin America, like I said, they're going to be talking about Latin America, the Europe's global role. How will Europe have the global role with peace and prosperity? The invasion of Ukraine threatens the decades of peace and prosperity on the continent and marks the coming of age of Europe and the geopolitical actor. Peace and prosperity. That is what they're talking about. And so we know, if we don't know anything else, strategic outlook on Japan, capitalism. It's just on and on, y'all. Like I said, it goes on and on and on about the food shortage, the crisis of the food and all this stuff. It just goes on and on. Like, on and on. Clean energy superpowers. Again, like I said, on and on. Global collaboration, digital health, digital, everything's digital. We think it's good. This is not good. None of this stuff is good. Serving up digital services. Turning up the heat on greenwashing. What is that? Claims could be misleading. What is greenwashing? So these are things that we need to be researching because we need to be aware of the enemy's devices, all of their devices that they are talking about. We need to be aware. Okay, and so you got your remarks. And when they start talking about peace and safety, it says, for when 1 Thessalonians 5 and verses 2 and 3, for when they shall say peace and safety, then sudden destruction cometh upon them as travail upon a woman with child, and they shall not escape. Okay? These are, we're overpopulated. So many people is overpopulated. So I hope that y'all enjoyed this video of the devices of our adversary. And one thing I did want to point out to y'all, he does come so subtly. One day I was in my studies and something dawned on me about the Apple with the phone. Their logo is a bitten apple. And it was so ironic to me that they come so boldly and they don't hide their intentions. So that's what let me know that technology, and I had seen this years ago about technology being evil or could be used as a weapon. So because the iPhone, the logo is a bitten apple, isn't that the symbology of Eve in the garden eating the apple of the tree of knowledge? I'm just saying. So that was revelation that the Lord had gave me about that. And it, you know, it just kind of like, woo, I was like, this is crazy. But we're living in a time where we need to really be repenting. Like I said, we need to be turning to our Father for guidance, for counsel, for wisdom. And we need to pray against the leaders in high places. For us, we wage not against flesh and blood, but by principalities. We war not against flesh and blood, but by principalities, leaders in high places, the media airwaves, the technology world, these people, big tech, and all of these people. So I pray that somebody got revelation, edification, actual wisdom, knowledge, and understanding of the words that have came out of my mouth and what you have just seen. This is only the beginning. Research it for yourself. Don't take my word for it. Research it for yourself and see what is really going on in today's world. So I love y'all so much. Always remember to keep God first, the Most High Yah, and seek the kingdom of heaven, and all things will be added unto you. We strive every day for righteousness, though we're not perfect. We fall short of the glory of the Most High every single day. But if we hold on to his unchanging hands, he will direct our path, and he also will help us to walk a holy and righteous life separate apart from this world, because we are in this world, but we are not of this world. So we need to ask to get our hearts circumcised. We need to cut out those stony parts in our heart, and we need to have our heart to be penetrated with the word so that we can walk in a more holier and righteous way. So I love y'all so much. Until next time, smooches.
Looking at the soldiers coming down.